I'll show you how to build the Skywalker lightsaber with light, clashing sound, and this hilt, all for $30. Interested? Here we go. This build only takes a couple things. We're using some cellophane. This is, you can see it's from Easter, so I got it for half price off. Originally it was $1, 5 and below, and I got it for 50 cents. A fun blaster. Yeah, you can get that at a big box store for $1. Off season, 50 cents. This is the T8 tube, probably the most expensive part of the build. That's about $3.50 right there. And then this is just Shark Bite 1-inch tube. And I'm gonna make my blade around a yard long. So the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna take this and cut the top off. Don't lose this. I think I can make another lightsaber that I'll show you at a later time. But if you can see, once you cut it off, it fits on there really nice. But there's also a hole in the end. Take a blue mirrored marble and I'm gonna stick it in the bottom to keep the light dot from coming out. And also the mirror kind of principle maybe will shoot some light back into the lightsaber. We'll see. Once I cut it off, I cleaned it out. There's a little bit of lubrication in there, and you can see the hole. And then I sanded it down a little bit on the inside, make it show up a little bit. I super glued the marble into the end. I'm just gonna let it dry. I've already sanded down, you know, all the lettering that's on it, this kind of stuff with some fine sandpaper, 200-300 grit. And then I'm doing a fit check to make sure I've got it straight, and that's just pressed on there like that. But I'm pretty amazed at the good fit that is. And that gives it a nice little different kind of tip on a lightsaber. Next we're gonna do is figure out how long we want to make this. So I just took a dowel and I went down there and I tried to figure out how far down I want to put it. If I mark it right at the ridge where it's going to be on the inside, that's how far it is. Measure it just about 2 inches or 5 centimeters. And if it's still a little long, I can trim it down when I'm done. I know that the sleeve and the cellophane is going to come to here, so I'll mark that and then I'll go 2 inches from there and then cut this off. I used the tape method so you can get a real good straight cut. I took the tip off and did a vacuum to suck up any of the possible dust. You don't want the dust inside the blade. You're going to go the whole length of this plexi, which is right here, this new thing. That was my initial estimate, but with the cap pushing down. So now to do the cellophane to wrap the white blade. This really isn't hard to do. You just want to make sure you have a dust-free surface so when you line this up and start wrapping it, you don't get any kind of lint or anything in the build. And I'm going to start with a straight nice end and just tape it along the length of the blade. If it's a little long, I don't care. I'll just cut it off at the end. The whole idea is to just get it so it's nice and straight. So keeping it straight and taut all the way down is important. That will give you a nice even roll. And you want to try to not have any puckers. So here we go. Ready to roll. I found I didn't have enough room on my workbench. It was just too crowded. So I brought it down to the floor level and I've got this cutting mat and I'm just going to roll from here. I've actually taped a straight line all the way across. I'll cut some of this extra stuff off to make it easier to roll, and then ideally it'll be nice and flat. All right, here we go. Just roll very patiently. Trying to keep it straight. Keeping it tight. Might be easier to pick it up and do it like this. Don't try to rush it. As I keep rolling, it gets closer and closer to the blue on the end. You might have to roll it a couple times just to make sure it's right, or you can just kind of get it there and then see how I got this little white band here. Didn't roll it as straight as I wanted. A couple times to get it right. After several attempts to try to make it with the tape, I just took the tape off because I realized the tape was just getting in the way and trying to make it perfect. Now I've got it all wrapped up. It's just pressure fit and I was able to adjust it on the end. I'm going to slide protective sleeve over it, make the cut, and I've got the blade. Here's the blade with the fluorescent T8 sleeve on top. I'm going to cut this off and then tape that again to keep this blade in place. Here's the little slot. I use this straw here. Turn on and off the sound. And if you don't clash it or hit it for a while, it will eventually shut off. Or you can shut it off that way. On these flashlights, they move back and forth. I found that you really want it extended. So that's why I put this rubber band in here to kind of keep it in place. You also have to take off this little clip. And you can do that with a very small Allen wrench. It's pretty easy. This is the part that goes in. You can see that there's a little groove there. I've shaved it down a little bit. You can see a little bit of a notch there that holds this piece in place. So I made a groove right here so that it would slide in there easily. You can see the sound bits in there, and I just make it so that I can just drop the flashlight right in there, because the flashlight batteries don't last as long as the batteries for the sound system. Just being able to put them, drop that in there like that, it stays pretty good in place, especially when you put the blade in. Also, there's different modes. There's bright, a little dimmer, and this psycho mode, which for the blade is kind of interesting. It actually gives it a nice little pulse. I did that on Halloween and people thought that was kind of neat. This screw here is what I use to cinch down the blade once it's in place. If I was to do this again, I would probably bring it up to about here so it has a little more of a bite. That's right back at the end of the connector. Maybe in the middle of these two things here. I think it'd be perfect. The great thing about this blade is even though when it's not lit it looks good, it's got that little bit of shine because of the sleeve, and it's fairly indestructible because of the shark bite tubing on the inside. I really like this little end here. It's a little off on the color, but it really kind of gives it a nice protective end shape, kind of like what Rey's lightsaber has in the movie. And there you go. Thumbs up and comments always appreciated. Thanks for watching. More builds coming soon.